is a journalist. She's a host. She's an entrepreneur. She's also an author, a very busy woman. And she is, her book is called The New Single. Tamsen Fadal is here with her father, Jim. Nice to have you with us. And then Tanya and Debbie are sitting.
Thank you.
Yes, a very important subject we want. Yes, okay, that we want to cover right now. What does the new single, what does that mean?
You know, I wrote this book after going through a divorce, a very public divorce, and I realized coming out of it, I wasn't the single person I was when I went into my marriage and my relationship. I think the new single is somebody new coming out of a major, major life change that has control of a lot of different areas of her life or their life, but this one area, you know, is not worked out. And so the new single is somebody emerging from a big life change.
How many years were you married?
I was married 4 years, and I've now been divorced almost 3.
So how do you lose your identity, and then how do you get it back? Where did it go?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know when it leaves you, but somehow it does. And somehow when you come out on the other side of it and you're aware of that, you go, I'm not the same person. I'm a person that liked to travel, and I didn't do that, you know, at some course of things. I think it's okay to compromise. Of course, we know that in terms of a relationship, but I think you complete the other person, but you don't lose yourself. And when you've got to go and find that again, there are a number of steps you have to take to do that because it's not easy. You don't realize it's happened.
What was the first step that you took to find yourself again?
The first thing I realized I had to do, I didn't do it right initially, but I realized once I was on the path, you know, out of that relationship, on my own again, I realized I needed to stand still. And that's a very hard thing to do. I'll tell you what, I would have done anything to keep people on the phone 18 plus hours a day, not to be alone with my own thoughts, because that was the last thing I wanted to do. So I had to be still and really survey my surroundings and see who I was again and what I wanted.
How long did that go? How long were you on the hamster wheel before you went, stop?
That hamster wheel, I remember it well. You know, 90-day increments is really what I did with everything as best I could, because I felt that was the best way to change habits and make new habits. But I was on that hamster wheel for a while. I really was, until I said, I'm done with Saturday nights sitting there with my chihuahua ordering pizza in my sweatpants. I'm done crying. I'm done feeling bitter. I need to move on, and I need to figure out who I am in this new role.
What kind of pizza? Because I'm still going
I'll tell you
thin
what.
crust, and I'm hanging in tough.
New York's got to share a pizza, so I will tell you, I don't do the thin one.
Yeah.
I do the good one. I do the good one.
I want to bring your dad in on this because he somehow fits into this equation. You saw your daughter going through this.
Yes, I did. I sure did. Lived through it myself.
Yeah. All right. So what's the key? Why? How's your father figure?
You know, my dad, before I started out on my journey into television, he said to me, it's better to be alone than lonely with someone. And at the time, I didn't right?
I love that.
And everybody kind of has that reaction because until you've ever been there, until you've sat next to somebody but felt very, very alone and lonely, you don't know what that means. He told me that, and when I started feeling that way within the relationship, I realized, wow, it is time for me to move on from there. And that was the advice that he first gave me. And then when I realized that was happening, it was it's one of those things where I turned and I went, I now understand what you're saying all these years later. And my dad's my best friend, the person I go to for advice.
And you dedicated the book to him.
I did, absolutely, yes. He is in the heart of the book.
I didn't realize I was going to be dedicated to,
But was it something that you felt she needed to hear, or was it just your wisdom that said this is?
Well, she'd been living with somebody for a while, She'd been married 3 or 4 years, and you don't think about being lonely.
Yeah.
And she was comfortable in it, but till it got to a point where she wasn't. And then that's when I knew she was going to be alone. And I felt like she needed to deal with that and not worry about it.
Well, we have Tanya and Debbie over there. Do you have any questions, or do you like to contribute to this conversation?
Do you connect with this at all?
I just love what you said about it's better to be alone than to be lonely with somebody else. Those are very poignant and very true words. I think anyone who's been in that situation knows that there's nothing truer than that.
Yeah, and I think too, like being vulnerable in a relationship is very important. Once you realize you can't be vulnerable anymore, I know that you probably know a lot about that, but
sure,
that's when you know.
I think she needed the time to reestablish her own lifestyle again, and she could do that if she was alone and she thought about it and wasn't worried about anything but her future. I think that was important.
That was a big thing. A lot of people say, well, you're going to start dating next? Have you started dating again? What's next for you? And that was really how the book came about, because it wasn't about me looking to date or even thinking about dating. It was really trying to find a way to like myself again after what I looked at as a failure in my life. Like myself first and then love myself next. And that's why the book is really not so traditional in its advice. It's not advice about how to get back out there. There's some of that, but it's really about finding who you are.
But where do you go? Sorry, but when you say you had to learn to love yourself, like yourself again, did you look in the mirror and not see the person you loved or liked? Did you see what didn't you like when you looked in the mirror? Then how did that flip?
Yeah, I avoided it because it was somebody that I didn't know anymore. It was somebody that I didn't know. I didn't know how to be alone. I didn't understand the sound of the word I, because it had been we for a very, very long time. I didn't even know what I liked anymore, and so I started doing little things, like little lists. Get out of bed in the morning. Lists that you think are just silly, but you have to do that to put one foot in front of the other. And that's, anybody that's gone through that understands that you have to kind of do those little mundane things to get through every single day.
I see the
Was
faces.
it a very codependent relationship? It sounds like you lost yourself because he was doing everything and you just said, okay.
You know what? We had a business together. We actually ran a matchmaking business together, which was what made it so public, because there was so much irony in that. But I don't know if it was maybe it was codependent. I think it was just more that we did everything together, and I did lose myself. We did different things, but always, came back together at the end of the day, called each other 100 times a day. So I didn't know who I was or where to go next when I was out of it.
Is that not a good thing to do in a relationship? I mean, how does one lose one's identity in a relationship?
Because isn't that what it, and at least in a marriage you want, and you strive to be closer, have that intimacy with one another. But you're saying find a separate path?
I think you have to be independent to be together too. I think that it was important to, there was always the line from the movie, you complete me. I think the line should be, you compliment me. And that's really what it should be in a relationship, not that you complete me.
Right.
That's good advice. Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, what would you say is the #1 thing that you did to really, really start yourself on that next track? You know what I mean? To give advice, what's the main...
Yeah, you know what? I did a couple of different things. Aside from just standing still, I really surveyed my surroundings, saw where I was, decluttered my heart, which is what I called it. And they were things such as changing up my apartment, making sure there were no signs of the things that I walked around and made me sad all the time.
Did you take them off of your phone and your social media? Did you do that?
There were different names that you put into your phone at that point, right? But, and I called my dad all the time for advice, because he made me feel like it was going to be okay at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So what do you want everyone to come away with from your book?
I think everybody to come away with the fact that, it's okay. You are not your relationship status in any way. That is not what defines you as a person.
I'm going to write all this down.
I have it written down for you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's true, too. I'm going to make my own list and keep it right by, my
I'm giving you a
bedside.
chance to do it here, but Father's Day is around the corner. Do you know what you want to say to Dad?
Oh, yes. You are the man in my life,
Don't cry.
Daddy. I love you.
I'm sure he
complete
completes.
her.
I'm sure you complete it. Yes. I'm sure you
Complete
do.
and compliment.
Oh, Debbie, don't cry, honey. It's okay. I know.
Oh.
All right. Well, 10 lucky viewers will get the chance to win the new single. All you have to do is follow us on Twitter. Retweet our tweet with the hashtag new single, and good luck to you. All right.
Good
Thank you so
book.
much for
Very
sharing.
brave
Sorry.
journey.
Thank you so much for sharing.